So generally, cruise vacations are considered a great value. You get a lot of bang for your buck, but that doesn't mean that cruises are inexpensive. And so you've got to save money on your cruise anywhere you can. And you can even do that before you cruise. In today's episode, we're going to look at 10 ways you can save money before your cruise. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loca. I am your host, Tony. And well, I have lived and breathed cruise vacations for the last 8 years. I spent over 440 days on cruise ships. And so I'm keenly aware of the need to save money when it comes to procuring and executing your cruise vacation. Let's get right into the tips. Now, first and foremost, I want to talk about the timing of booking your cruises and two strategies that you can follow. Number one is book as early as possible. A lot of times you're going to get the best cruise fare the further out you are from the actual sailing date of the cruise. This isn't always true. It's dependent on what the demand and things look like, at the time that the cruise becomes available, the popularity of the cruise line and the cruise ship. But a good rule of thumb is that if you want the best price on your cruise vacation, you want to book that cruise as far away from the cruising date as possible. A couple cool things that happen there is you can put a deposit down early and you can pay over time, so it makes it easier to pay for that cruise. And then, of course, you possibly will get a better price. And then the second strategy when it comes to the timing of booking your cruise is book late. Now, this doesn't always work out, but there is something that is true in cruising, that there is a final payment date for every cruise. Either it's 90 days out or 120 days out, determined differently by each cruise line. And what it means is that you have to pay off your cruise fully by that date. And if you don't, they cancel your cruise. Imagine somebody puts down a deposit on a cruise. They either pay on it or don't pay on it. And it comes to the point where that cruise has to be paid off. Well, if they don't pay it off, then that room, that cabin will become available again, and the cruise line is going to want to sell that cabin so that they have a full cruise ship. Now, again, depending on things like demand and popularity of the cruise ship, that could either be a cabin that sells for an expensive price or a not expensive price if the desire of the cruise line is just to get that cabin booked. I certainly think booking a cruise way in advance is the way to go because there's some other money-saving tips that come along with that process. But don't sleep on the idea of, hey, I want to do something in a couple months. Let me see if there are some inexpensive cruises because people have canceled out their cabins. You might find a really inexpensive cruise that way. Timing's everything. Number two on the list, somewhat related to number one, cruise in the off season. Now, that's certainly subjective. It's certainly subjective for me because I live in Florida and it seems like everything's in season in Florida. But there's certainly some times where cruising is less in demand than others. Particularly think about it from a perspective of a family vacation. The summertime is a huge time for families to go on vacation. And I think that's probably what would be considered the season down here in Florida, considered the season in the Caribbean. So if you want maybe less kids and less crowds and potentially a less expensive cruise, look for an off-season cruise. Cruises where kids are still in school or people generally have to work, that kind of thing. And honestly, I think that's true for most forms of travel. If you can pinpoint the destination that you're wanting to visit, what time is less busy than others, most likely the cost will correlate with that. On the less busy times, maybe the cost will be a little less expensive. Number three, use a travel agent. This is an interesting conversation in the cruising space. What is true is that every cruise fare has a commission built into it. And that is a commission that the cruise lines will pay a travel professional to help you book your cruise vacation. And in most scenarios, it doesn't cost you anything to use the expertise of a travel agent. There are some travel agents that charge a fee, but there's a lot of travel agents that don't charge a fee. And I would always suggest trying to find a travel agent that doesn't have a fee. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of great travel agents out there that don't charge a fee. And that way you are getting the most bang for your buck. You're getting the expertise of a travel professional and you are not having to pay for it, which is a beautiful thing. I wish more things in life were like that. How is a travel agent going to save you money on your cruise? Sometimes travel agents have access to pricing that is less than what what is published on a cruise line's website. A lot of times it's going to depend on what volume of sales their travel organization does with that cruise line. There may be a sliding scale for a discount, that kind of thing. But another interesting thing that you get with the travel agent is access to group bookings. So there's a whole concept in cruising where cabins can be held in a group, in a mass, for a certain price. Sometimes we do that. We have our travel agent grab a block of cabins. We invite people to come sail with us. And the interesting thing is, if we have more cabins reserved than the amount of people that want to come and go on a cruise with us, our travel agent can sell or reserve those cabins for just anybody at the discounted price, at the locked in price. Just as a regular person, you don't really see that when you're on the cruise line website. You do give up some control. You know, the travel agent is going to become your advocate now with the cruise company. And so if you're somebody that really likes to control every detail of your cruise and be able to reach out to the cruise company, I don't know that the travel agent would be the best way to go, but I do think if you're looking for savings, I would certainly interface with a good travel professional. Number 4 on my list, and this one's about saving money and it's about reducing your overall stress level. I would avoid booking my airfare with the cruise line. Now, sometimes the cruise line makes that pretty advantageous, but just as we talked about in the previous tip, you're going to give up a lot of control. The cruise line is going to dictate your flights. And we've seen horrible examples where the cruise line will book a flight for somebody on the day of the cruise, and a flight that doesn't make sense, a flight where people struggle to get to the cruise port on time. And also you lose any ability to deal with the pricing for the airline. If you let the cruise line book your airfare and then all of a sudden you see a great advertised rate for a flight that you can book yourself, well, you can't really change that. But if you're booking your own airfare, you have that flexibility. Number 5 on my list, and this is certainly something a travel agent or a travel professional can help you with, watch for rate drops on your cruise while you're paying off your cruise. This is a huge benefit of reserving a cruise 18 months out, 2 years out. You can bird dog the price of that cruise, and if you see that price reduced over time, you can call up the cruise line, you can have your travel professional call up the cruise line, and you can realize that price drop in most circumstances. Real life example, a couple weeks ago, we were sitting out on the porch with my brother-in-law who has a Princess cruise booked. He was looking at the Princess website and he said, wow, this cruise that we're going on in December looks like it's $600 less than what I paid. And he's like, I'm just going to call Princess. And right there, while we were sitting there having some coffee, he gets on the phone with Princess and they're like, yeah, it's $600 cheaper. We're just going to credit you back $600 to your credit card. Could take 5 business days. Like within a couple hours, he saw a charge back to his credit card, a return of money to his credit card for $600. So yeah, the beauty of booking well in advance and looking for savings prior to your cruise is that it's out there, especially when the price drops. Now, for number 6 on this list, let's talk a little bit about cabin selection. It's a great debate in cruising. Would you rather cruise once in a balcony or cruise twice in an interior? Or 1.5 times in a guaranteed cabin? It speaks to the idea of what kind of cruise cabin you choose makes a difference when it comes to how much money you are spending. The conventional wisdom says if you want the least expensive cabin on a cruise, you go for an interior. Sure, you got no windows, you're not able to look out, it's not the same experience as a balcony, but sometimes you're saving 30, 40, 50% when it comes to the cost of an interior versus the cost of a balcony cabin. Somewhat of a compromise, but this one you've got to be willing to give up some control. Somewhat of a compromise is a guaranteed cabin. The way it works normally is when you book your cruise, you choose specifically the cabin that you want to be in. You get a specific price for that cabin. You lock it in. That is your cabin. But the cruise lines, they also hold cabins that they call guarantee, and they're going to decide where they stick you on the cruise ship. And they're going to pay for that, the ability to stick you wherever they want by giving you a reduced rate on that cabin. So typically a guaranteed cabin, you can get a guaranteed interior, guaranteed balcony. Most every cabin type has a guarantee. If you can book one of those, the cruise line's going to decide where to put you, but you will realize some sort of discount. But you got to be willing to be okay wherever you end up on the cruise ship in the guaranteed situation, because you could end up in an obstructed cabin. You could end up over a noisy location or under a noisy location. But if you're just there to be on the cruise ship and you're there to save money, guarantee is often a good way to do it. Number 7 on the list, and I'm really not trying to poo-poo the offerings of the cruise line, But, that's the way it works. So once a business is established, there are often secondary businesses that rise up that offer similar things that the main business offers at a less discounted price. And in this instance, we're talking about travel insurance. We're talking about cruise insurance. Every cruise line offers some sort of cruise protection when you are booking your cruise. And often it is more expensive than insurance you can buy from a third party. And I would argue that often the cruise insurance is not as robust as the third party travel insurance. What do I mean by that? Well, most of the time, your cruise insurance doesn't really kick in until you're on the cruise ship. If you've booked your airlines through them, maybe the travel protection kicks in there. But for the most part, your trip to the cruise port, your trip home from the cruise port is not covered by the cruise line insurance. But the third-party insurance, you can set it up in a way where your whole travel is covered. Travel to and from the cruise port, any side trips that you make, all covered under that third-party insurance. And most of the time, it is less expensive than what the cruise company is offering. You can get travel insurance on a per trip basis, or you can also get it on an annual basis. We have an annual insurance plan through a company called Allianz. And I also have a link for a free travel quote in the description. That's going to look at a lot of different companies based on the information that you put in and give you a tailored free travel insurance quote. There's money savings to be had in the travel insurance part of your cruise vacation. But get the travel insurance. Let that be the final word here. Don't say, oh, I can save the most money by not having insurance. Don't do that, because if something happens and you don't have travel insurance, that's going to be a life-changing event. There's a lot of examples of that. Save money on your travel insurance, but make sure that you get the travel insurance. Number 8, and again, the theme is developing, research third-party excursions. Now, I'm a big fan of cruise ship excursions. I love the shore excursion team on cruise ships. They're there to give you great recommendations. They're there to arrange shore excursions for you. And all of that greatness comes at a higher price than if you book that same excursion sometimes through a third-party vendor. Of course, the biggest challenge I see with using a third-party vendor for your shore excursions is whether or not they guarantee they will get you back to the ship on time, or whether they will get you to your next port of call if for some reason they cannot get you back to the ship on time. The big selling point for cruise ship excursions through the cruise line is that if something happens on your excursion and you will return late to the cruise ship will wait for you, or they will get you to the next port of call. Not every third-party excursion has that same guarantee. Some do, but not everyone does. So you're going to save money by booking a third-party excursion, which I'm for the saving the money. Book those in advance. But the challenge is, are you going to get that guarantee that you will be returned to the cruise ship in the event that something goes wrong? You got to balance that savings versus that risk. Be careful when you're saving the money on the shore excursions, but don't sleep on it. Definitely look at third-party shore excursions as a way to save money on your cruise vacation. Number 9 on my list goes back to that cruise booking process. Just pay attention when you're booking a cruise, when you're working with your travel agent. Just before you commit to something, before you make a payment, make sure that the order for the cruise that you've laid out is exactly what you want. Make sure there's no extra packages that you didn't want. Make sure that everything is in there so that once you get that cruise price locked in, you got exactly what you want and you're not paying for something extra. It doesn't happen that often, but I have talked to a couple people that said, wow, I ended up with internet and a photo package, and I don't even know how I got all this. I wasn't trying to buy that, but all of a sudden I bought that, and I'm going, well, dude, your cruise is now $1,000 more than what it would have been. So pay attention during the booking process. I'm going to keep ringing the bell. Another reason to use a good travel professional so that they can help you with that. They know the ins and outs of those systems. But yeah, be careful when booking your cruise. Now, number 10 on the list, this one's kind of simple. It's just be prepared with your stuff prior to the cruise. And when I say your stuff prior to the cruise, I'm saying things like sunscreen and seasick medicine and aspirin and toiletries. If you can bring a 12-pack of soda, bring a 12-pack of soda. If you can bring 2 bottles of wine, buy those bottles of wine before your cruise, because once you get on the cruise ship, everything that is somewhat reasonably priced on land becomes exorbitantly more expensive on a cruise ship. I have paid $20 for a small tube of sunscreen. I mess this up all the time. I'm like, where's my sunscreen? I got to have it. I'm as fair-skinned as they come. Well, now I'm in the gift shop paying $20 for something I could have brought from home for $5. I do have a bonus tip because I want to over deliver for you. If you've gotten any kind of value out of these first 10 tips, do me 2 big favors. Please hit the like button. And if you want more, just subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost anything. Love to have you watching the show frequently. The bonus tip is book as much in advance as possible. Pre-book things like a drink package because it's less when you book it prior to your cruise. Pre-book things like internet because it's less when you book it prior to your cruise. Pre-book excursions. Book that specialty dining if you can before your cruise. Anything that you can pay for in advance is going to be typically less expensive pre-cruise than post-cruise. It's a strategy by the cruise lines. They want you to spend as much money before the cruise as possible so that you reload your wallet and spend a ton of money on the cruise also. Man, after that list, I feel like I got more money already. Look, there's a lot of great ways to save money prior to your cruise. I'm sure you've got one that I didn't even mention. Please put that down in the comments and we can all help each other. Thank you for watching the show. Tony for La Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.